So let us look at the first technique. It's called meaningful dopamine fasting. So this is inspired by Bhagavad Gita, as Lord Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha. Any materialistic temptation, the temptation of sense organs, can be eliminated by fasting. It could be sight, sound, touch, smell and taste. So you fast, your temptations would come down. But this is a very, very powerful statement. It says, Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Anything that is of attraction to you, we call it bhoga, it can only be renounced or it can only be eliminated param drishtva, something that is much, much better than what you are currently going through or what you are currently experiencing. The ultimate is God. So I'm giving you one of the many, many meanings of this verse. But param drishtva, the moment you embrace a higher, then you will be able to renounce the lower. For example, when we go back to our own lives, if you are playing with a toy, back then when you were a toddler, when you were a kid, that was huge. Are you equally attracted even today? No. Oh, that's not what you want, right? For example, eclairs was amazing. Now, if I give you Lindt or a Godiva chocolate, eclairs means nothing. So, oh my God, eclairs was beautiful. Yes, it was beautiful. It was very tasty back then. Toys were fantastic back then. You are no longer lured by it. So, vairagya, which is nothing but renunciation, is not giving up anything. It is renouncing the lower, embracing the higher. So when we talk of dopamine fasting, people say, you know what, give up everything. No, that's being dumb. Because when you give up something, you have a void. You will always go back to the same pattern. That's exactly what the problems of habits are. So when people give up alcohol, cigarette, you know what? They don't find a meaningful alternative to it. So you will always see them coming back to them or coming back to being an alcoholic. And that's the mistake people do, especially giving up a bad habit. They don't find an empowering alternative. So when we talk about social media addiction, you want to give up. What are you filling that with instead? Param drishtva nivartate. So you want to renounce the lower, embrace the higher. So how do you put this into action? Very, very simple. You remember in the previous video, especially when we talk about what actually happens with social media addiction, that's video number 2. We spoke about dopamine receptor burning. That means because there is too much of dopamine, the receptors get burned and you no longer experience the same level of happiness. It's like a tolerance level. It is like a person who smokes one cigarette, no longer is happy with one cigarette. He needs 2 or 3 or 4. Similarly with alcohol, drugs, that's exactly what we spoke about, the tolerance level, right? Here, what has happened, because we've been addicted to social media, our dopamine receptors have been burnt. So if I have to give you an analogy, it is like a hot coffee. You suddenly sip it, your tongue becomes numb. Have you seen that? I mean, I'm sure you would have experienced it. It takes few hours to few days for it to come back to normalcy. Similarly, our dopamine receptors have been burned. So what you need to do is remove the scale or remove that first layer which has been burned. So that requires a little desperate action. That means you must go into what I call 1 full day dopamine fasting. What do I mean by that? For 1 full day, for example, tonight I stop, next day complete dopamine fasting. The day after tomorrow is when I will use my mobile. If you have the luxury, find a reason to do that, find a place and time to do that. And let me tell you something, this is the first level of what we call fixing the problem. Removing the scales of the burned dopamine. I'm just giving a very layman's example. That's not how it works, but it's for our understanding. So you need to fast for 1 full day. No mobile at all. No music, no social media addiction, nothing that produces pleasure dopamine. Right? You can go for a walk, you can spend time with your family, read something, exercise, meditate, go out, do anything, but not a screen. Not a screen. 1 full day. And trust me, when I did this several times, and I have many friends doing it, they come back and say, you know what, Neeraj, it was such a sense of freedom that I experienced for 1 day. And now I'm feeling happy even for a smaller thing. right? So your level of dopamine comes down. So you are rejuvenated. Your reward pathways are rejuvenated. Number one. So after that, you don't have to do it all the time, because one, we don't need to do it. Another one, if you're a professional, if you're hooked on to WhatsApp and all of that, obviously you don't have the luxury to switch off like that. So what do we do to ensure that meaningful dopamine fasting happens? These are the steps. Number one, we need to remove the notification sounds from the groups, especially apps and the WhatsApp groups. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram or any social media app, notifications, turn all of them off. Because remember, we talked about the habit loop: trigger, action, reward, craving. The triggers are your notification sounds. So the moment done sound goes, curiosity always kills the cat. So you always are tempted to look what's there. But what if there is no notification sound? So remove all the notification sounds, especially from the groups, if you cannot afford to remove individual notifications. So that's the first step. The second step is, I want you to take an oath for about a month. Tell your groups, the 8th standard group, my society group, my old classmates group, my college group, my old colleagues group, my family group. There are hundreds of groups that you're a part of. Tell them you are on a dopamine detox. So come out of the group for about a month. And you can always join back, saying, you know what, I'm on an experiment. I really want to take control of my life. So I am coming out. If possible, come out of as many groups as possible. Obviously, you've muted all the notification. That is step number 2. Step number 3, we have discussed enough about it. No mobile in the morning. Absolute no. This is cardinal rule. No overstimulation in the morning, at least till afternoon, especially when it comes to social media, because you are on a mission to overcome your addiction. After that, we will moderate it. Nothing wrong. That's fantastic. But we are on a fixing mode now. So no mobile till afternoon, at least 10 in the morning if you can, and slowly increase it. So what you will do is, I'm not saying don't entertain yourself. I'm just saying have total control. That's all I mean. The next technique, never use mobile as your alarm. Buy an alarm clock. Because when you don't get sleep, you always have the temptation to look at the notifications or whatever it is. Don't fall for it. So never use it as alarm. Keep the mobile outside your room. See the fun. Buy an alarm clock. It's worth it. So these are some of the operational things you need to do. And this is technique number 1. So technique number 2 is very interesting. We are using our own weakness to our own advantage. We are lazy. People are lazy. Let's face it. So let's use the laziness to help us. So what do I mean by that? Add friction, add resistance. For example, you will not have the mobile with you when you are studying. You will keep it in the next room. So if you have to look at it, you'll have to stop, go to the next room and then open it. Painful. That's a beautiful way, and your mind says, you know what? Let me study. So you made a decision, and these are smaller things. We are using our own weaknesses, our own strengths to make things happen. You know what I'm saying, right? But the foundation remains the same. You are determined, you are convinced, you are committed. These are some of the things that will help all these reptiles in our brain to be addressed. They will all get pacified. Next, remove all the apps from your mobile, especially those whom you have the maximum addiction to. So what I want you to identify how much of time do you spend on what app. Is it Instagram, is it Facebook, or is it YouTube? For a lot of men who are elderly, they spend a lot of time on news. So identify that specific thing that is costing you, especially the daily hunt that we see as we speak. It always keeps on pumping the news to you. You're always overstimulated. Oh, that's a huge dopamine rush that you get, right? Especially for those professionals who are addicted to news. So what I want you to remove that. Because every time if you have to look at it, you will have to reinstall the app, which is very painful. So remove it, and for a month, don't go for more than that, because you are gaining control over the addiction. See what happens. So that's adding one more layer of friction. Next one, screen off at 9 p.m. Because when you add that friction, if you have to again switch on everything, it's painful. Switch off and keep it outside. See what happens. Again, one more layer of friction. But if you are still not able to do any of these things, let me tell you a very powerful method. Give it off to somebody and ask him to change the password of the mobile during the day, especially if you're on holidays, or lock the apps and the password should not be with you. It should be with other person. So every time you need to open, you have to ask for the password and tell him that he will not give you. So it's like playing your own tricks, that the instant gratification monkey will do everything and anything to ensure that you will go back to the app. But these kind of resistances will weaken them. After some time, you will gain control. I know these are very superficial, but you will have a lot of fun with it. Sometimes people have come back and said, you know what, that's such a powerful thing. Because when we commit to somebody that I'll not look at a mobile, and when you go back, it's like going down in your own eyes and you don't feel good about it. And that's a very powerful method that works. The third technique we talked about, param drishtva nivrittate. I want you to find a better purpose. I want you to find out, what do I really stand for? And that is a very serious conversation you will have with yourself. I know sometimes things are going to be very boring. I'm not saying it's going to be interesting, but having said, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a purpose, trust me, it's a very painful and a very meaningless life. And you don't want to live like that. Spend some time. And for a lot of people say, Neeraj, I'm already in the late 50s. What goal will I have? Or late 40s. I'm a homemaker. What goal do you think I will have? No, go back. There are so many achievers who have got a goal, who have renewed themselves. If you listen to Colonel Sanders, he got his first breakthrough in the age of 65. So what are we talking here? And when you indulge yourself with a meaningful goal, these things become too secondary. Even if somebody wants you to look at the mobile, you will not. And look at these celebrities. You know what is one thing common with them? Well, this will shock you. None of these people use mobiles. Isn't this shocking? Whether it's Tom Cruise, whether it is Christopher Nolan, whether it's MS Dhoni, they don't have mobiles. But you must say, Neeraj, they have secretaries. They will do the work for them. You know, that's common feedback I get when I do the workshops and share this slide in the workshop. But I say, look at the spirit. They are not addicted. Of course, they need mobile for operational reasons or for appointments or whatever it is, but they are not addicted. They are busy thinking, doing something meaningful that adds value to others' lives and their life. This is the only savior, friends. If you have a powerful goal, a purpose in life, trust me, just like alcohol or a cigarette or a drug or a mobile, they are dead things, they are non-sentient, they cannot bother you because you are in control. It's time we wake up. It's time we tell ourselves that we will not live a mediocre life. Not in 100 years. We are a role model. We have to be proud. When we look back at the end of the life, yes, I lived, I loved, I mattered. If you think this video has added value in life, I want you to add value to others' lives. Just share this with them. So let us together, I'm on a journey with you, friends. Let us make a difference, a little difference that we can make to others' lives. I'll see you very soon with yet another amazing video. Thank you so much. Take care.